As the United States considers its next steps in the Middle East, the reality of war remains visible across the region.
Our forces are executing with unmatched skill, and the mission is advancing decisively.
And here at home, the conversation is taking shape among those who have served.
This is an illegal and unjustified war being waged by the Trump administration on behalf of Israel.
Iran is a long time coming. It's a long time coming in the sense that this is something that we have been sitting on since the late 70s.
I have mixed feelings. Do we belong there starting a war? No, we don't belong there. I have personal convictions that just don't align with Iran. But Iran didn't come here and start attacking us.
But for many veterans, the question isn't just what they believe, it's what comes after. Some help other veterans.
We completely dismiss the traditional medical model that consists of a little bit of cognitive processing or a little bit of cognitive behavioral therapy and a whole lot of medication.
Some seek healing.
Nothing out here is going to end my hatred of myself until I start doing some work on myself. I think I'm a warrior. I'm part of the warrior archetype. I identify as a warrior.
Others speak out.
We can dream of a better world. We do not have to continue to live in a world where all of our children are underneath bombs.
U.S. military operations in Iran have renewed debate over another potential conflict. Tensions between the United States and Iran have been building for years, shaped by cycles of escalation and restraint. Across the country, people are taking to the streets. Demonstrators are speaking out against U.S. involvement in the war. Some are raising concerns about civilian casualties and the risk of a wider conflict. Others are calling for a ceasefire and for the United States to step back further military action. There are also questions about how the conflict could develop and what it could mean for U.S. troops in the region. The protests reflect an ongoing debate about the role of the United States. Now, once again, the question of what comes next is front and center, including for those who have served. Who are veterans after the uniform comes off? Those who return home carrying more than what can be seen. In the United States, veterans are respected and recognized for their service and for what that service means to the country. But they're not defined by their experience alone. These are people with lives and experiences that began long before the military. And for many, what they carry doesn't start or end with it. Life after service isn't one story, it's many.
Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace over us, let all around us be.
That is what America will mean to the people of Iran.
Outside Congress, demonstrators, including veterans, are voicing a range of concerns.
My name is Eli McCarthy. I'm with the Franciscan Action Network, and we have a coalition of different faith-based organizations here today. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you.
My name is Robert McCaw, and I am the Government Affairs Director with the Council on American Islamic Relations, and I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the American Muslim community. I want to thank the Franciscan Action Network and the many faith leaders and congregants that have gathered here today. We may come from different traditions, but we are shared in a moral truth. War must never be launched unjustly. Human life must never be treated as disposable. That is why we are here today in front of Congress. The U.S. war in Iran is unnecessary, unjustified, and unconstitutional. Iran did not attack America first. That's why we're calling on every member of the House of Representatives to vote yes on the bipartisan Kana Masi War Powers Resolution. This resolution will require the removal of U.S. forces from unauthorized hostilities against Iran.
The calls here go beyond the protest. They include specific demands, urging lawmakers to act and limit further military involvement. At the same time, many here are framing the issue in broader, human terms.
Cries today with all people who suffer violence in Iran, elsewhere in the Middle East, and in our own country. With those who have seen too much violence, too much war, displacement, and mourning, we cry out with them for peace, stability, and healing. We cry out that neighbors may live as neighbors, as we were meant to live. For whatever our religion, race, or culture, when we take up arms against our neighbor or curse our neighbor, we shame ourselves before you, O God. So we turn in prayer toward our neighbors who are in great need. In solidarity with these sisters and brothers, we cry out to you, God. Let there be joy where there is mourning. Let there be hope where there is fear. Let there be stillness where there is violence. And let there be peace.
But the debate over war is only part of the story. Across the country, veterans are navigating what comes after service in very different ways.
As the US military continues to strike Iran and reports are coming in of more and more dead American soldiers, I've come to Ohio, a place with deep military traditions, to speak with veterans and better understand the true cost of war on American soldiers.
According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, an average of 17 veterans die by suicide every day in the United States. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs provides counseling, housing assistance, and mental health services to millions of veterans each year. But many former service members say the transition to civilian life can still be difficult. Ohio is home to one of the largest veteran populations in the country, with hundreds of thousands of former service members. But like many places across the country, Ohio is part of a quieter story. A story about what happens after the fighting ends.
I've just arrived in Hillsboro, Ohio, and I'm at the headquarters of the Save a Warrior Foundation, an organization dedicated to preventing suicide for veterans. And I'm here to talk to the founder of the organization, Dr. Jake Clark. Hi, Doctor.
Hey, how you doing, Aaron?
Great, thank you.
Welcome to Staff Sergeant Dick Wood Warrior Village. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. This is Dick Wood Warrior Village. This is the main estate house. This is what we call 4J.
Jake Clark enlisted in the military at 17 and went on to build a career in law enforcement, serving with the Secret Service, LAPD, and the FBI.
And here's the main living room, and where we like to welcome guests, what have you. And
after 9/11, he returned to uniform with the National Guard. Years later, that experience shaped a new mission. He founded Save a Warrior, a program focused on preventing suicide among veterans and first responders by addressing deeper trauma many carry long before service.
since 2012, more than 3,100 returning veterans and first responders have come through Save a Warrior.
He says many of the struggles veterans face don't start in combat, but long before they ever serve.
We're trying to heal from a really bad childhood. As a child, we nailed our foot to the floor unconsciously, and we're in this vicious circle of trying to solve a problem, not realizing that we've nailed our foot to the floor. Here at Save a Warrior, the first thing we do is we point out, you know, your foot's nailed to the floor. a person looks down metaphorically. Before we take that nail out of your foot, we got to advise you, it's going to be really painful. It hurt going in, it's going to hurt even more coming out. And this is a process of helping people get out of the vicious circle and rediscovering what it means to live a healthy life with an adult philosophy versus one where I'm not enough.
Both Larry and Joseph went through the program, each arriving with their own experience of service and struggle.
Tried killing myself when I was about 12 years old.
Later, he spent more than 2 decades in law enforcement, much of it in high-risk environments.
I thought my disparaging view of life had everything to do with all the trauma I experienced as a police officer. But a lot of the stuff I did on the police department I won't talk about, especially on a camera. To this day I won't talk. I was mostly undercover, and there was a lot of trauma as far as violence, and
yeah, I mean, living
I've had
undercover.
friends get murdered on the job and stuff like that. It's physical injuries. My body's been broken in a dozen different ways. I took this off because I didn't want it on camera, but I multiple serious injuries. And in my head, when I came through Save a Warrior, I think I'm a warrior. I'm part of the warrior archetype, and I identify as a warrior. I'm the guy that you send through the front door when you got a bad guy in here and you need to take him down. I'll be the first guy through the door. I identified as a warrior, but as I come to find out, when I deal with that stuff that happened before I even got in the military, the childhood stuff, that adult trauma vaporizes almost on its own. And that's been the experience of everybody that I've met that has come through here.
That shift, looking beyond what happened in service, changed how he understood everything that came after.
I thoroughly enjoy my life now. I love Larry Turner. And I never said that before my entire life till I went through Save a Warrior. I hated who I was. I've always secretly hated who I was. And I didn't even really start liking myself, first of all, until I went through, started doing some work on myself, and then started helping other people come, this is the way. And now I feel I have value, purpose. I enjoy being who I am. And I never imagined that. I never imagined that I would like being who I am.
Joseph describes a similar realization.
But I could never actually be even honest with myself of why I wanted to kill myself.
He served in the Army from 2002 to 2005. Although Joseph says that a lot of his trauma comes from childhood, his time in combat stays with him.
There was, very specifically, my alive day is January 18th of 2004. And on that day I was at checkpoint 1 in the green zone in Baghdad. And at the time it was the largest IED to ever explode in Iraq. And it hit our checkpoint. There were 23 civilian casualties, over half of which were children. And some of them were still burning alive when the dust settled. So it was really disturbing to witness that. And there was nothing we could do. There was nothing I could do. I felt very helpless, very disempowered. And the military system does its best to prepare us for war, and I'm expecting to go up against an enemy combatant. I'm not being prepared to witness the death of children, innocent lives that are right in front of me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it.
After returning from Iraq, where he served during the early years of the war, he says he spent years searching for answers through therapy, medication, and different programs. Eventually, he found his way to Save a Warrior.
And I thought I was going to talk about my time in the military. I thought I was coming here to talk about my war service and the very tragic things that I experienced while I was deployed. And that didn't really come up.
Like Larry, he says it didn't start with war.
I was very surprised that the direction of the conversation went back to childhood. And I could speak the truth for the first time of what happened for me and what was happening in my past that drove why I was being suicidal even after doing so much work on myself.
He too began to see it differently.
If you've had enough pain and you're looking inward and blaming yourself for the things that happened during the deployment or at any point during your life, an invitation is to pause and reflect and know that maybe, just maybe, it's not your fault.
So coming from a tradition of, people who served in the military, now do you see like organizations like Save a Warrior being more educated about like the consequences of war compared to maybe your, father's experience? He didn't have the same programs, to reach out to. Do you see that developing, kind of like us understanding like the psychology of being deployed into warfare?
Oh, absolutely. There's far more resources available to veterans that are returning today than there were when my dad came through, or my grandfather or my great-grandfather. I have a long military history in my family.
Wow.
So there's far more resources today than there were, and yet a lot of the resources are still very ineffective at really getting down to what's really causing some of the struggles that we're having.
Beautiful view up here. This is where I come to when I want to get away from everyone and just put on some like Alexa and just meditate or chill out or do some work.
A space shaped by his own experience and the life he's built for himself and others since.
Today I'm in Canton, Ohio. I'm driving to Josephine Guilbeau's house, another U.S. Army veteran and a former intelligence officer. I was recently with her in Capitol Hill while she was demonstrating against the war in Iran, and I came here to her family home to better understand her stance.
Protesting against the war has been part of American history, including among those who have served. During the Vietnam War, some veterans and other demonstrators began speaking out, organizing protests and sharing what they had seen. In 1971, a group gathered in Washington, D.C. Some threw their military medals onto the steps of the U.S. Capitol. A moment that drew national attention.
US out of the Middle East, no justice, no peace.
Decades later, during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, some veterans again questioned the mission, speaking publicly and taking part in protests. Today, those perspectives continue.
Josephine is much younger than all the veterans we've met because she left the U.S. Army after the Gaza war, where she didn't think the Army's stance aligned with her values. And she's been speaking out ever since. I met her in Minnesota, where she was demonstrating against ICE. She demonstrated in Congress throughout Israel's genocide in Gaza. And now she's speaking out against the war in Iran.
Like others here, Josephine's experience in the military shaped what came next, but in a very different way. She served nearly 2 decades in the U.S. Army. Today, she's a mother of 4 and an activist.
Hello?
So for us, being super present in our kids' lives is so important. We don't want this war to continue death and destruction on children, because that's ultimately who's paying the price, between the genocide in Gaza, what's happening in southern Lebanon, and now what's happening inside of Iran. The people that are getting murdered are children.
She says her time in uniform changed how she sees U.S. involvement overseas.
I joined the military in 2006. I went to basic training in 2006. And, at this point, we were like 3 years into the invasion, and still in those moments, I think back to that propaganda surrounding my thought process going into believing that the invasion of Iraq was justified by these weapons of mass destruction. They say death to America. If we don't take out their weapons, they're going to kill Americans. And those are really the exact same talking points that they're using with Iran, that if we don't do this, there's somehow going to be, you know, some sort of mass casualty event inside of America where, you know, thousands of Americans are going to die. There's these sleeper cells and, you know, all these different propaganda points that I remember convincing me that we should go to Iraq. I'm seeing them use again. And so it's like a tale as old as time, right?
Josephine says speaking out hasn't always been easy. In her own community, she says conversations about the war were often avoided or dismissed. At times, she even found herself trying to explain what she was seeing and why it mattered.
That made me realize that here in America, a part of that desensitization of human beings is trying to categorize the war and the death of children into like this political category. That way it's taboo to talk politics, it's taboo to talk religion. And so for me, that helped me sort of understand the path of how we got here, because now I want to look, how did we get here as Americans? How did we get here as human beings in America, and start deconstructing that for people? Because we have to understand that, you know, it is not political when our children are being massacred, because they are all our children. As mothers, all of these children across Earth, they are all our children. And so, you know, we have to understand that that is our priority.
For her, that perspective goes beyond her own service, shaped by how she's come to understand people and her own family's history.
This is actually my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
So my father, my grandfather, his name is Julian Ramsey Guilbeau. He is actually fourth generation to be immigrated into Louisiana. And we ended up in Louisiana because of a genocide. The British genocided the Acadians out of Nova Scotia and boarded the families onto a ship and then sailed around the colonies and ultimately landed in the ports in Louisiana, where they got off the boats here.
Later that day, we joined Josephine at an anti-war protest in Ohio.
So we are actually here in Alliance, Ohio, and there's a community here that comes together every Saturday from noon to 2 to protest against the chaos that's happening in our country.
Each arriving here with their own experiences and their own view of what service means.
My name is Tim Williams. I served in the U.S. Army Field Artillery from 1984 to 1990. My stance on Iran is that the people didn't ask for this. The American people didn't ask for this. The Iraqi people or Iran people didn't ask for this. This is just Trump's way of distracting from things that are happening in this country, in his political career, what the Republicans are doing in this country. And as a person that loves freedom, I'm a biker, I don't want this country, I don't want our people involved in political, personal political vengeances that this president has. It's revolting, it's dishonorable, it's, I don't know the word, it just makes me sick every time I think of what he's doing to this country. I'm 61 years old and I've never seen anything like this in this country.
If I had not been in Vietnam, I never would have chosen to go back to graduate school. But the 58,000 guys that got killed and the hundreds of thousands who were wounded, lost arms, legs, or were blinded, it was for nothing. And I'm afraid that this is what we're getting into. War is not the answer. I am only one veteran. There are numbers of other veterans out here, but not all veterans feel the same way.
And that's not new. From one war to the next, and the protests that often follow, those who serve return with different understandings of what they were part of. Josephine, Jake, Joseph, and Larry all served in different places at different times. But what they witnessed, the violence, the loss, the moments that stay with them, don't simply fade. It becomes part of how they make sense of the world. And for many, the search for meaning shapes what comes next.
Veterans might not all see it the same way, but what stays with them isn't always visible. It becomes part of how they move through the world, long after they return home.
And here, beyond the debates and the decisions made elsewhere, service continues, and that's something they all carry with them.